So I welcome again to the Northeast Water Talk series, which is going on from last 1 month each Saturday. Today is episode number 7. So today we are going to hear 2 more stories from Northeast. So unfortunately, one of our speaker has severely health problem. He's in hospital, so we are not able to pick up him in this Water Talk series. He is Louis Goswami. He is in hospital, so we wish him to speedy recovery. Please for him. And today's session is going to be shared by Dr. R K Debbarma. We know him very well, everybody. So R K Debbarma is from Tata Institute of Social Science, Guwahati campus from 2013 onward. He is the he's the co-developer of MA course in Tata Institute of Social Science, with his peace and conflict studies. So I welcome Dr. R K to share these sessions.
Okay, thank you, Bai and Ram, for asking me to chair today's session. And in fact, when Ram he informed me to chair, I was reminded of the former students of TIS, my former student, who after masters thought of doing research, right? And the student asked me about, sir, what topic should I choose for my research? And I was like, that's up to you. But he kept insisting. So I said, maybe water, right? Work on water. And after about a year, I met him again and asked him, so what have you decided? And he said, I'm working on identity crisis, right? And I felt like that is a topic from 60s and 70s. What's the point of doing work on identity crisis? And I'm glad that outside of academia and Northeast, there are people like you who are thinking and writing about water, and I'm glad to be here. And I've been following Linda's work for a long time, and I've been sort of compelled to listen to talking from Ram whenever he comes to Guwahati. So looking forward to learning from both Linda and Ram. So what we can do today is begin with Ram, and whenever Linda's network is okay, we'll ask her to share her story with us. Both of you, I think, take as much time as you want, and maybe leave about 20 minutes at the end for discussion.
Thank you for again, getting this time. Actually, I didn't know that I'll be, the replacement for Louis. And Louis, hope that he recovers very soon. I'm sure he'll recover, but just that it'll take some time for him to come out of it. My story today is about an urban area. So the first, in fact, I remember listening to the story of Guwahati, the water situation. Jyoti Das, who spoke about it, and the water crisis that the urban cities are facing across Northeast. And it was a really terrible story actually in Guwahati, how people are suffering despite, like Brahmaputra running on just like there, largest ever, one of the biggest river on earth, I would say, not just in India, but on earth. It's big river, water all throughout, though sometimes it goes lean, but then groundwater is dipping, population, there's problem, it's a problem, real problem. And all my friends who are in Guwahati, they're not even getting water, they have to buy water. And we have also heard of similar stories in Mizoram, in Aizawl, all the urban cities, like in Kohima, things are so problematic. They're having problem with upstream and downstream. There's a conflict already. We haven't heard from other some like in Gangtok, water crisis in Gangtok. In fact, we have somebody who is from Menkit Lepcha. She was here. I think, I don't know, was she just locked out or something? So today's story is about Imphal. This is a story about Imphal, but from an example of one locality in Imphal. More or less, this will be a story of Imphal, though it is about one particular Laikai or a village. So this Laikai, I picked up my own place, my own Laikai, where I live. So I'm speaking from there. You know, as you listen to the story, you're listening to the story of where I am sitting now. We live in, it's a story of one Laikai called Chingmerong Maning Laikai. Chingmerong is so Laikai is how the valley is organized. Laikai is like it's like a small village. It's like a small village, and its Laikai has a institution of its own. It has an elders council. I'm the current secretary of our elders council. We have a youth club. We have the women group, like that. We have other religious group, cultural group, which governs these Laikai. So, and our Laikai has a population of some 415 households. And so it is in Imphal East, but it is like literally in the middle, where the Manipur State Assembly building is right next, just next to just 5 blocks from here. The Manipur High Court is on the other side. The interstate bus termination is on my right side. And there are all the main hospitals. So a major university now, DM College, Law College. So it's like, it's all here in this immediate neighborhood. So it's like, you can say it's in one of the hubs of Imphal. And as I was saying, this will give an idea of what an Imphal problem is. So as I was saying, the Laikai tradition is a very traditional arrangement of living. Laikai is a traditional arrangement of living, and so somebody is from one Laikai or the other. If you talk about anybody like in Imphal, you will ask from which Laikai are you. So it's a very traditional setup. So every Laikai traditionally, and still now, I would say, even now in my place, in our case also, every Laikai will have a community water body system, community pond. This was dug long time ago by the kings. We had our main pond was dug in 1809 by one King Chhakchhuak, and we have so that's a common pond. Pukri, as we also call Pukri, as you call it in Guwahati in Assam also. We have a sacred grove. Every Laikai will have a sacred grove. We have a sacred grove. In some of the main, in some locality, the sacred grove is more or less gone, but we still have. So every sacred grove will also have a water body. So we actually have 4 water bodies in my Laikai. In a very small area, we have 4 water bodies, and so this is also one source of drinking water, washing. It's a public water body, and most Laikai still have, but in a real, like in main market area and all that, it's all gone. Then we have traditionally, in fact, my own house, we still have our own personal water body. So we have a pond inside. So in most families, if you just go out of Imphal, they will have a private pond. Also, there will be a public pond. The locality Laikai, Laikai Pukri, as we call it, Pukri Achauba, Pukri Macha, the big one, the small one. Then I was talking about the sacred grove, which is Lai Pukri. Lai means God, the pond of the gods. So which is also accessible to people to use it. So since we are talking about water and how cities and urban cities and urban capital like Imphal has been dealing with water problem or water for different purposes that is required. So if you have a river, of course, if you have a river, we don't have a river. So if there is a river also becomes a source. There are also within Imphal itself, there are villages who also have access to rivers and lakes. We used to have a lake. We used to have a lake not long ago, but this is a lake which was filled up. We protested. We fought against the government. This is where they built the Manipur Assembly building. So this was also, just adjacent, literally like next to our Laikai is the Manipur Assembly building. Big area they have taken over, and this was a water body. Not just water body, is also a playground, partly a grazing ground. So that has been completely taken over by the government and built the assembly. So we do not have access to that anymore, but we have more problems because it was a sort of a lake where water, the monsoon water is taken care by that. It's a shock absorber. Well, and we have a hill just next to our house. So the Laikai next to that is the assembly, and then there's a hill. So a lot of rain and then gets collected in the lake, which is now filled up, as I was saying, by the Manipur Assembly building. So urbanization, unplanned urbanization, sort of, I would say, has taken over a lot of the water bodies. In Imphal, otherwise, it was a city of lakes. It was full of lakes, water bodies everywhere, but has been filled up. And particularly the government has been responsible for destroying those water body systems. And this is one very clear case. Our own common lake was destroyed by the government, by the Manipur Assembly building. In fact, my activism on water issues started with that. When I started fighting, and first time I went to the MOEF, I wrote to the MOEF asking for public hearing and so on and so forth. So we were able to save half of our Laikai from the construction. We were able to defend ourselves in some way, but we lost that. But we still are having problem because that lake was filled up, and that water which is supposed to be in that lake is now flooding our Laikai. For any little bit of rain, our Laikai is flooded. We have problem with it because the small drains that they have created for the assembly building is not able to carry the water that the lake which is supposed to do to do the job. That is not done anymore. So that's a traditional system, but as I was saying, we still have our bodies, water bodies, and these are looked after by what is known as Singlup. Singlup is the Elders Council. So we ensure that the common properties of the Laikai, the common properties include these water bodies, are protected. And in fact, this season, and including the last season, there was water problem, and the people still continue to use the water body. But the sequence of events is such that when the water bodies are there, and then the government introduced the hand pumps. The hand pumps were introduced. We still have two main hand pumps. People think that that's a better water body, so people began to use that hand pump water. People still do it. People use water pond. And now after that, what happened was the introduction of the pipe water. The pipe water was introduced, though it was so bad. It comes like once a week, twice a week. Even now, every alternate day water comes. But what our observation is that, and which our interviews in my Laikai feel that, because now you have water coming on pipes in your house, that the importance of the traditional water bodies, which are the pukris, I was talking about those water bodies, those dwindled. In fact, your own water body inside your house, also the private ponds are also being filled up. And therefore, the relationship between the Laikai members and the ponds, and even including the authorities like the Singlup, has diminished so much, so that the water bodies are not being looked after as it was in the past. So in fact, in most Laikais, unlike, of course, ours somehow we are able to defend, kind of protect it. In most Laikais in Imphal, the water bodies are being filled up, and they have constructed community halls. They have constructed some shopping, shopping area and all that. And this is also the MLA, MLA will come and they said we have MLA funds. They will give money to those Laikai authorities. They will convert water body into something else, non-water body, something marketplace, some community hall, some badminton hall, all that. So in fact, this has been a topic in many occasions in Imphal, that this was a mistake. Why should we fill up a water body? Because now when we talk about climate change and urbanization, when there are water crisis in different places in the city, there's no source of water, and these are the source of water. In fact, this time also we realized that we in our meetings, in our community, in our Laikai meeting, we said this was a great thing that we did. Like, we did not fill up, we did not destroy our water body, because people could come to that. When pipe waters are not coming, there's water crisis, the pond water still remains. So, but whether pipe water has resulted into this kind of situation is something, an area to be looked at. But this is how people looked. People understood that the relationship between me and the water body has eroded so much so that it is not even an issue of discussion in our community meetings, which was not so in the past. So that is one important observation that we made in our so how a city like Imphal will be able to deal with water crisis, how will be able to look after the water bodies in urban areas, is something that we think is important. In fact, in one of our meetings, like meetings, we invited the environment department director, and stressing on the importance of preserving water bodies in the face of climate change. So climate change adaptation issue. This was also discussed in our Laikai community meeting. So we also realized that it is important. I think that's okay. The other issue that we wanted to bring up was the issue of gender in our our culture, which is patriarchal in nature, of course, that water fetching is always the function of the women, and therefore when there are water crises, women always bear the burden, and that's an issue that was brought up in our group discussions for this case study. That women in the past, when we had crisis, when the real crisis, the ponds are dried up, there were no pipe water coming in, the hand pumps are not working too well, there are lines and lines of people waiting for water. There have been occasions in the past. Nowadays things are slightly better, but in the past it was like that, and it was women and children, like girls, who have to stand in queue for a long time to be able to have some water for the family. And so those are important markers in our Laikai. Therefore, in our previous meetings in our Laikai, we have we have made commitments that we will protect our Laikai water, so that there is a source for life. There's a livelihood source for life for our Laikai. The other issue that has come up in our Laikai, which has been discussed in some way, is that the government is trying to push for the privatization of water, the metering of water. So this is a new crisis which might unfold. The government is saying we will give you 24/7 water supply, but it will be under a metering system where you pay in advance. You pay in advance for your water every month, and then we give you 24/7. But our Laikai authorities say that no, the water is a basic right, therefore it has to be preserved, it has to be provided. For the poor people, access to water will become a problem. But this is something which is coming up in Imphal. That's a kind of idea. In fact, this was also, I think, came up in the last meeting in Guwahati, the Guwahati water issue of JICA and JBIC trying to do those privatization thing in Guwahati also. I think the same funder, the JICA or JBIC, one of those is also funding the the water pipeline system in Imphal now. So that's a new level from a community water system to a more private metering system that is possibly coming up in Imphal. So I will end here. There are many issues, but I think that the key issue that I have raised, I've tried raising here.
Okay, thanks, Ram. Okay, so from this urban Imphal story to let's move to the a success story in Iskashi Hills by Linda.
Like it's already been said that my story is going to be about the water warriors of Like Share. Like Share is a village in Iskashi Hills, which is say a few kilometers from about 20-25 kilometers away from the capital Shillong. And it is, though it is not that far, it is quite rural. And if you go across to those places, you will find that most of the areas are heavily quarried for sand and sandstones. It has been going on for ages, for years and years. Quarrying and sandstone mining, stone mining, sand mining has been a traditional livelihood of the people. So now you can imagine after all these decades, after all these years of mining, those areas are almost desertified. And besides the stone quarrying, there are agriculture fields where they do a certain kind of agriculture which is called bund agriculture, where they make mounds of earth on which they plant the vegetables. But this is very bad for the hillsides because it leads to the running of all the topsoil. So with that kind of agriculture and with the stone quarrying and mining, the water has become a very, very problematic for all the people. Long ago, water was quite, it wasn't scarce being in the hills. There was enough water, enough springs, enough streamlets. But currently, that is not so. So in this village, why this village was chosen as a story, I chose this village as the story for water stories, because this village has made a stand, which is quite unusual in these areas. They have made a stand as a village darbar or a village council to stop a major stone mining project which was to come in their village. So in fact, the village head, who's called the Rangba Shillong, had already given the NOC, the no objection certificate. But once the people came to know, then they started to talk to each other. They started to campaign with each other and talking about how this huge mining project would affect their water. Even the little bit of water that is left, it would affect them so much. So they began to talk amongst themselves, and particularly there was a man who has always been an activist. There are activists. There are different kind of activists. There are activists who belong to some NGO. There are activists who belong to some big agency. But there are certain kind of activists who are naturally social activists. From the very moment they begin to understand things, they imbibe the problems of the people and they try to come out with solutions. So there was one man who has always been an activist, a natural activist, and he took this up. His name is Deng Bok. He took this up very seriously and started to talk to the executive council of the village, started to talk to the headman, the new mining project would be very harmful for the water of their village and the surrounding areas. So it took many months, almost over a year, to finally to be able to convince the headman and the village executive members that they should now retract that NOC. They should take back that NOC. So there was a huge meeting of the public meeting. There is a very democratic way of doing these things in these Khasi villages. So they call it a Dorbar Paitba, means a general meeting of the people of that village. So once that meeting was called, and then this problem was put before the people, whether they want this mining project to stay or whether they want to go, whether they want the NOC to be cancelled or they are okay by giving the NOC. So once this question was put up before the Dorbar Paitba, then all the people, they raised their hands and said that we want the NOC to be retracted, we want it cancelled. We don't want this new mining project in this area. So that was one of the, I should say it was one of the biggest things that has ever happened in those areas, where people hardly come out, even though it is affecting them badly, they hardly come out in a crowd. So this was one occasion where the people of the village stood up and said, we will not allow this huge mining project to continue. If there are any traditional mines, people still doing mining traditionally, meaning by manual labor, doing daily wage labor, that is okay. But this industrial scale, boulder mining, stone mining, we cannot allow it. So they canceled the NOC. So this was one of the big achievements of people who are fighting for struggling to keep their environment, struggling to keep the greenery, struggling to ensure that their water, their streams are still flowing. So I should say that this is a very big example of what people can do. So that is my story that I had written for this water talks.
Yes, okay. I think we can open it up for discussion to everyone present in the room. Since he's on the phone, probably you might have to direct your thoughts to Linda first.
I have the right to ask questions. No, I will have to listen.
We can. It's a discussion. We can discuss the stories.
Linda, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, nice. Good to see you after a long time. So I also spoke, right? But I wanted to actually something that I think is in the mind of a lot of people. Today also I got a call on the issue from Lafat, from Shana. This hand mining or traditional mining, as people call it, with hands, versus the industrial mining. Yes, of course, one is a big scale, but how far one goes with the traditional mining? Because I'm sure traditional mining does have its own consequences. How do you understand that in a larger environmental? It will also have impact on water system and so on and so forth, right? May not be as in the scale of an industrial mining. This is an issue I think is just something we still have to discuss as an issue.
Yes, this is an issue, but then it's a livelihood issue. Traditional mining has been done forever by these people. It's not a new thing, I mean, all over the world, people have been doing traditional mining, artisanal mining. And this is one of their livelihoods. And because of this, because of the decades and centuries of doing mining, nature is deeply scarred. And if you go to these areas like areas that I'm talking about, you will see that the mountains have been restricted. They have been cut. They are being dug up even today. But if you compare that with the kind of industrial scale mining that's going on in other places, then this point has to be brought up by the people themselves. Then they have to be given some alternative way of earning their livelihood, because they have been earning their livelihood from this traditional way of mining only. So how can we tell them to stop unless you give them something else to do?
Yeah, so I have a quick sort of thought for both the stories, is that it seems that in societies where we still have some semblance of traditional authorities, like in Khasi Hills, right? There is a Darbar Shillong. And in places like Tripura, where it's gone, and we are in the control of the MLAs and ministers and the state, where it will be easy to push the idea of meter water, we pay by meter. Whereas in so where there is some semblance of traditional authorities, there is still certain power in the hands of local population. So how would we sort of evaluate these two stories from Imphal and from Iskashi Hills?
How do we what?
How do we understand the power that people still have if we live under traditional authorities, right? Like darbars in Meghalaya, and in places like Imphal, where, or in Tripura, where I think we have no more traditional authorities. We are dependent on the state to push through such policies of like you pay by meter for water, like you pay for electricity.
As far as the traditional authorities is concerned, I should say that the traditional authority among the Khasi tribe in Meghalaya, the Garo Hills, Garo tribe, and then the Jaintias, traditional institutions are still very strong. They really have a hold on their people, and probably this might be because this area is under the 6th schedule and under the district council. Then only after that you have the state. But I think when we talking about the traditional institutions, the grassroots one, the village Dorbars, over them there are the CM ships. In a CM ship there may be so many villages. So there are 25 CM ships in the Khasi Hills. One thing is that the value of these traditional institutions has not been tapped by the state, through which they can through which they can work with these traditional institutions if they're really serious about implementing whatever policies they want to implement about safeguarding the environment, about the water. So as far as I can see, the state government itself has not been able to chalk out a proper strategy or a proper policy on water. So if they don't have a policy, how do you expect the traditional institutions to even to be able to take any steps? Whatever steps they're taking only because there are some natural, local activists who bring these up within the Darbar, who talk to the people, and through them only these kind of positive things happen, as I have just narrated the story of say. So it is the state which has to lead, but it has failed as far as I can see on water or any other sector.
So Ram, what's your take in case of Manipur, where the state wants to install meters for water? Can a grassroots move? No, no, not grassroots. Can a movement um, uh, 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 um, led by activists, not natural activists like you, an activist, and democratic electoral politics can resolve this attempt to shove down our throat, that we pay for the water.
This is supposedly a trend happening across. Even in Shillong, at least we're talking about cities in particular, because where they see possible profit, they're not going to do in a village or something. So even in Shillong, there was an effort in the past by some company to do metering and privatization. ISO, Asian Development Bank, has started metering and all that. Metering water, they say it's a political decision. It's a political decision, and how far that goes with the people is something that is to be seen. But I think our position, and as my position also, will be that you cannot certain things you cannot do that. Certain things, like without water you cannot survive. It is not something to be bought. If you do that, it becomes a problem. In fact, many of you may not know that water electricity is prepaid system in Imphal, and it's spreading across. First they started with the main, so it is prepaid here. You have to pay in advance for all. So it's a water meter, and then you have to pay in advance. You have to buy in advance. Now and this was a World Bank project, and it was accepted in the main market area because there was, they have privileged electricity for those areas only. But now they say it's a success story. Now, in fact, the World Bank and saying that it's a very success story, and they want to implement this prepaid system across India. Now, this they're trying to do this in other states also. And basing on this, they're saying that we need to privatize water. In fact, they're saying people are buying water. One component which I forgot to add was that in times of crisis, there is always a private player. The last story that we hear from Shillong, one story from Shillong that came was that water is just a phone call away. This was a statement made by one person who told the stories from Shillong, the Shillong story. Water is a phone call away. That was a statement made by that author. I forgot his name. So it's something like that. Even in Imphal, water is a phone call away. I'm sure this is true in many places. So they're saying, basing on that, you are already paying for water. What's the problem? We'll ensure water that is there 24/7, but you pay in advance. But then if you don't pay in advance, you die. So this is something that is something highly, highly problematic. Therefore, it has to be stopped. That is what my position is. Yes, on the issue of traditional bodies, the Imphal body traditional unlike the Darbar Shnong, unlike the Khasi system, which is still very strong, but they also tend to get bought by MLAs. They're also under the influence of the ruling party, and all that is there, which is known to Linda and many other people. Which we had the problem in Lafat. From a Lafat story, I got to know that that thing is there. Very similarly, even here, the district council also can be under the influence of the ruling party. But there will always be people who will be critical of even the Darbar or traditional body is doing if they are going wrong. And I think this is a case that Linda was talking about. The Rangma Shnong has already given the no objection certificate, and it was forced upon him to withdraw that NOC. So the people and the vigilant people of the village, and so I think that's still very critical. So it's not just a traditional body. We need politically powerful MLAs who understands things better. So we have to act on that. It's a mixture of all that.
So Ram, you also talk about how the dismantling of the access to common water source has impacted the relationship among communities in your locality. And I think that's a very brilliant way of talking about how water is absolutely a human right. Yeah. And when we individuate our connection to water, for example, through pipe and through meter, it's an individuated, right? And in the process, we lose this idea of connection, community, a sense of belonging that exists in particular places. So I wonder if both of you can sort of talk to us further about how it's important to see the importance of community in protecting water in the region, and if you have examples from across the globe for us who are present in the meeting.
You know what? It's very important to. It's the most important thing about the story that I learned out there was that in that village, the land doesn't belong to any of the people who live in that village. So this is the kind of system we have. Even though we say we are tribals and we own those lands, the people don't own the land, but it's certain people, the clans or private people who own the land. And in this village, like say, the people had to campaign even with the landowners not to give their no objection to anybody to do any of this kind of work. So things are very precarious. It's in a very precarious position across these lands. So water sources also belong to certain people. If it is within their land, it belongs to them. So, and then the thing here is that the government has to negotiate with the owners of those lands if they want access to those water sources. So this is one of the things that is a bit different about about Meghalaya. So the people are in such a position that let's say they are not really secure. They are not even secure about where they are staying, because that land may not belong to them. It belongs to the land owning clans or some private party. And in that place, like say, so this my friend Dengbok, he took me around and he showed me the place where he, as a young boy, used to collect water. He told me that there used to be a stream here which was flowing, which had a lot of water in it. But when we went there, there was no water. It was just a trickle, and there was a kind of a spring where people had made a kind of a pond where the water would collect. And he said that there used to be lots of water there when he was a child. But now people have to wait for hours and hours to get a few buckets of water from there. And the only thing that is safeguarding that was about a few trees that were standing, a few trees and bushes that were standing on that hillock right above that spring. It was such a picture that, it became such a stark reality that if you have trees and bushes and greenery around a certain place, then the water will be safe. All around the other places around this place, there were no more greenery, no more trees. But the thing is that spring, that land where the spring was still there, the few trees were still there, Dengbok told me that we have to hope that the landowner of this place doesn't decide to sell it off. Mm-hmm. And then somebody will start doing something over there. If it happens, then all that the people can do is that so far they have been asking the landowners, please don't sell, please don't sell. So, it is in a very precarious state. So Shillong also the water supply position in Shillong is in a very, very bad state now. Water, even the water sources have dwindled. Even the rain, even if the rains come, the runoff from the slopes is too much, and what the turbulence, the rivers are too much in the streams and all. It affects the water supply system. So that has been the thing that Shillong has been suffering from. If some drastic steps are not taken to safeguard all these mountains around here, to make sure that the tree line is kept, then very soon even whatever is left is going to become just dry. There won't be any more water in all these. Only during the rain it might be gushing down the mountains, but once it stops, then there'll be no water. That is what we are looking for. It's a very gloomy thing that we're looking ahead to now in the future. Some people have to come together and really talk about all these things.
Yes, shall we, others, it's open for us to discuss these two stories. If anyone would like to share, ask.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of reiterate what R K Debbarma has said, our chair today. The importance of community reclaiming its control and management of the water sources is so critical now that I have this experience of working in Ukhrul. It is among the Tangkhul people. And Ukhrul is a growing township on the top of a hill, and which is served by a perennial source of water coming down from Siroi Hills, Siroi Peaks. And I visited all these villages a number of times. There was an issue between the district administration and the village authority there. Village authority was saying, we will provide the water to the town, but the administration cannot have a control over this. Like they cannot just come in and build up a structure and do things on their own. They have to take consent from us. So I think there is a beautiful, development already taking place among the Tangkhul, where because of the political awareness among the people, and more because the NSNIM Supremo belongs to that community. So there is a lot of political sensitivity on everything that happens there. And so there's this development where people put down their feet and say that, look, this is, this is Article 371C area, and we have the district council, and on top of that, we have the traditional authority who have absolute control and access to the entire resources. So you have no say here. In fact, even the district, the DC's office was once asked to relocate themselves because the process of acquiring that land did not quite follow what is traditionally prescribed according to Tangkhul traditional laws. And so there was a lot of tensions going on at a certain point of time, sometime in 2014-15. And so these are the processes going on. These are very encouraging. I think these are the ways every community, indigenous community, picks up, create that awareness, political awareness in the community, and reclaim their right over the resources. Perhaps we may we'll be able to look forward to, to see a situation of a free water for all, and once the community takes charge of the resources, from the government control or management, then they also have the cultural ethos to how to work with the natural environment and to live with it. And they have all day. Now, I did a little bit of research there, and I found out. One day I asked some of the elder generation people, how do you look at the forest? I said, forest and the entire natural environment within which you live, your village is situated. And then they said the entire environment is our protector and provider. And this is the kind of, the understanding of their environment. And if you see every part of the environment from the, largest to the smallest grass that grow there, and if you look at that as my provider and protector, what can be a better policies than protecting and preserving the natural environment, which will provide perennial water free for all. So I just wanted to share this initiative that's happening there in Manipur, in part of Manipur. And I wish that these kind of processes do take place everywhere. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting way to understand forest, because I live in Guwahati, and if I open newspapers every day, right, before lockdown, you always see a comment from an MLA, a minister, or from some big business talks about Northeast as full of natural resources. When they say forest, they see resource, and they always talk about human beings as resources. Northeast is full of human resources. Northeast is full of natural resources. They only see resources to be exploited, not as a forest that has to be seen as that protects, that provides. I think that's a very interesting point.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi. Thanks everybody for inviting me also to this group. And today, actually, I just came back from this water program also. And interestingly, in Nagaland, we are starting a water program through the government actually, but where the water is meant to be managed by the community. So we are also part of that group, and as we are talking about community owning water, it is very interesting. But as for our work, we have just started, so I cannot say much how it will go on, since we're going to start this year only. But since in Nagaland, most of the village, most of the program that is coming is being communitized. Even this drinking water thing is being communitized. So interestingly, we are going to find our own water source. We are going to bring our own water pipe, whatever. But the community is going to be the one to really own the whole thing. So as you're sharing about this, I think it is going to be very interesting, and I hope that in the days to come I can share more about it. But we just started the work, so yeah, that possibly. But thank you so much for inviting me to be part of the group. Thank you.
Thank you, Akena. Thank you so much. Anyone else? I think.
But if I have a question, Akena, is this a government project, or is it the long-term program of the government? Is that the one related to the German GIZ funded catchment area program and all that? Is that?
This is a government program. This is under Jal Jeevan, JJM. Yeah, Jal Jeevan Mission. But in Nagaland, we are doing it in a communitized form. So we are working together with the government, PHED department. They will bring the other technical thing, but in terms of management and in terms of maintaining, the community is going to take a huge part in that.
Nice, good to hear that.
I just want to chip in
I hope
here.
things work out. Yeah, I hope things work out. But since we are in the initial stage, so I cannot say more than yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, can I just chip in
Yes,
here to supplement Akena?
Yes.
Yeah, like in fact, what is happening is this entire process of communitization of development programs, where there is a contract signed between the state government and the village authority, under which village development boards are formed across the villages. And chairman, of course, is the ex-official, the council, head of the council or the Gaumbura. So much have been talked about, in the media, and also even UNDP has taken note of this innovative, kind of grassrooting development processes, And there are a lot of documents to read actually existing in the internet also. Now, what is happening is under this scheme, which began with a policy frame in 1972, and this policy was framed by one of the chief secretary who understood how the Naga villages function. And so quite in tune with the traditional institutions, they did that. But then there are a lot of problems into communitization of the entire development process in the rural areas, where there is convergence. They are trying to do a lot of programming convergence there, where they link all the government development resources which are meant for rural area, linked to the VDB. And VDB is supposed to be the planner and also implementer. But what actually happens is it is not VDB actually who is planning in most cases, but it is the DRDA, which is at the district level. And there is a structural problem in this, which I'm trying to share. So it is actually DRDA where experts, like employed government officers come and plan for the development. So there is not quite bottom-up processes going on, although the structure is placed. Secondly, all the funds are also linked with the VDB, and the VDB actually manages the fund. But the release and sanction of the fund is again possible only when the DC signs on it. So you actually do not have the authority to even sanction and spend certain amount of money. So there are a lot of structural issues there, because of which but government thinks that this is something that is working, that is changing development scenario in Nagaland from top-down process to bottom-up processes. And so there's a lot of optimism in the government sector. And so they continue to link quite a lot of resources, external including, tying up with this institution at the government level. But then, there are a lot of alternative observation studies in this regard. So, but on the whole, if you go by the policy and also program, designs, one will certainly be excited how development is being grassrooted in Nagaland. And actually, Nagaland is one state now after Article 370 is gone.
We have crossed the time limit. Probably.
One of the most empowered states, by the Constitution, where one can really be. Nagaland can set example on how community involvement, can redefine the entire development processes and policies. But very disappointing, since I worked there and I have done a little bit of research at the grassroots level, based on my observations and all that. It's a little disappointing in that regard. It has not taken off the way we would very much wish. Thank you so much for giving this time.
So thanks everyone for joining today, and thank you to Linda and Ram for these stories, from one from the urban and one from the village in Meghalaya. I hope to join in. Please do join in the coming weeks on Water Talk. And once again, thank you so much for taking your time to listen to the two stories. Over to you. Bye.
Thank you. There's nothing more. I think this is the time for closing. We are expecting more, participants in coming Saturday. Thank you.